Notre Dame's winter was supposed to feel different. There was supposed to be momentum, clarity, and a sense that the program was finally operating from a position of strength rather than reaction. Just weeks ago, the Irish had inked their highest-rated recruiting class in a quarter-century, a tangible sign that Marcus Freeman's vision was resonating at the high school level. Inside the Gug, optimism was high. The college football playoff seemed like a destination, not a debate. Even as the sport barreled toward another chaotic offseason, Notre Dame believed it had its footing, its plan, and its timing aligned. Then the ground shifted, fast and without warning. The CFP door slammed shut despite a resume that suggested otherwise, leaving a bitter aftertaste that lingered well beyond Selection Sunday. The decision to opt out of bowl season followed, a move that signaled both frustration and a desire to look forward rather than dwell on what might have been. Not long after, Freeman found himself pulled into the gravity of the NFL coaching carousel, forced to weigh his future amid outside interest before ultimately recommitting to South Bend. None of that turbulence was part of the original blueprint, but one thing Notre Dame did believe it had accounted for was the transfer portal, the compressed 15-day window opening January 2 that now serves as college football's most unforgiving marketplace. Mike Martin, stepping into his role as Notre Dame's general manager after the departure of Chad Bowden, spoke in December with the tone of someone who understood the challenge ahead. He acknowledged the calendar was tight, the overlap between high school recruiting, postseason fallout, and portal preparation nearly seamless. Yet there was confidence that groundwork had been laid, that targets had been identified, and that once the green light came, Notre Dame would be ready to move with purpose. The Irish, after all, had navigated this terrain before, and done so successfully. 4 days into the portal window, that confidence has been tested. Not only has Notre Dame failed to secure a commitment, it has struggled to even get coveted targets on campus. In a landscape where first impressions often double as final decisions, the Irish have watched opportunity after opportunity vanish before South Bend ever entered the picture. The case of Nick Marsh crystallized the problem. The former Michigan State receiver was a priority target, a player Notre Dame believed could thrive catching passes from C.J. Carr. A visit was planned, but Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti moved decisively, getting Marsh to Bloomington first, making his pitch and closing the deal before Notre Dame had a chance to counter. Marsh committed to the Hoosiers without ever setting foot on campus, a loss that stung, not only because of the player, but because of what it represented. At first glance, it felt like an anomaly. Indiana moving aggressively, leveraging momentum, and capitalizing on timing made sense. The Hoosiers, after all, have transformed themselves into an underdog curiosity into a legitimate portal power. But as the days unfolded, the pattern became harder to ignore. Defensive back Jontez Williams committed to USC almost immediately after leaving Iowa State, never making the trip Notre Dame hoped for. Wake Forest defensive tackle Mateen Irigoba was expected in South Bend, then never arrived, eventually committing to Texas Tech. Ian Strong, the Rutgers receiver viewed as a contingency plan if Marsh slipped away, pledged to Cal before Notre Dame could recalibrate. Even situations that seemed promising unraveled, like UCF defensive tackle Horace Lockett, who entered the portal, scheduled a Notre Dame visit, then abruptly withdrew from the portal altogether. Tulsa tight end Brody Foley was expected on campus, only for Notre Dame to pull back late, another sign of a board in flux. What's left is a feeling of being behind, of chasing rather than dictating in a window that closes on January 16, whether Notre Dame is ready or not. Freeman has been consistent in his philosophy, openly stating that Notre Dame intends to major in high school recruiting and minor in the portal. That approach has worked before. When the Irish needed quarterbacks in consecutive cycles, they landed Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard. When the nickel position needed reinforcement, they hit on Thomas Harper, Jordan Clark, and Devonta Smith. When a boundary receiver was required, Bo Collins and later Malachi Fields filled the void. These weren't accidents. They were targeted moves by a staff that knew exactly what it wanted and acted accordingly. That history complicates the present. Frustration. This isn't a program unfamiliar with portal success. It's a program trying to operate by yesterday's rules in a market that has changed almost overnight. 2 years ago, Notre Dame could afford to be selective, confident that its brand, development pipeline, and stability would win out over most competitors. Indiana wasn't yet a gatecrasher. Texas Tech hadn't fully weaponized its resources. Now, both programs operate with the urgency and financial muscle once reserved for the sport's blue bloods. In this environment, minoring in the portal can quickly turn into falling behind. The question hovering over South Bend is not whether Notre Dame can still add players, but whether it can adjust its approach quickly enough to match the moment. The economics of the portal have shifted dramatically. Supply is limited, demand relentless, and the price of impact talent rises by the hour. What once felt aggressive now feels cautious. What once felt patient now risks being perceived as passive. Would Notre Dame have landed Hartman or Leonard in this version of the portal, where quarterbacks command multi-million-dollar NIL packages and decisions are made in days, not weeks? Would Malachi Fields have chosen the Irish if Indiana had thrown its full weight behind him? Would Javonte Jean-Baptiste have landed in South Bend if Texas Tech needed one more edge rusher? These are uncomfortable hypotheticals, but they underline the reality that reading the room has become just as important as building the board. There is still time, and there are still names on Notre Dame's radar. Penn State defensive tackle Xavier Gilliam has already been on campus, walking through the indoor facility, envisioning his fit. Utah defensive end John Henry Daly, Mercer quarterback Braden Atkinson, Michigan State defensive end Jalen Thompson, and Iowa State receiver Xavier Townsend are all scheduled to visit. The possibility of Keon Keeley, once a cornerstone commitment of the Freeman era before his detour to Alabama, adds another layer of intrigue. Northwestern kicker Jack Olson appears to be a strong possibility, aided by family ties and a clear need on special teams. Pitt defensive tackle Francis Brew remains a name to monitor, particularly with Charlie Partridge's familiarity from his time recruiting him into the Panthers program. There is a path forward, one where Notre Dame still rounds out its roster in a way that mirrors the successful portal class that helped fuel a CFP run not long ago. That group, anchored by Leonard, Collins, Clark, R.J. Oben, Jaden Harrison, Mitch Jeter, and Rod Hurd, provided precise answers to specific questions. Notre Dame didn't hesitate then. They moved early, decisively, and with confidence. They didn't wait for Ohio State or Georgia to set the market, and they certainly didn't allow programs like Indiana or Texas Tech to dictate terms. Now, the challenge is recognizing that the portal game has evolved. It is no longer just about fit and opportunity. It is about speed, leverage, and resources aligning at the right moment. Money matters, planning matters, momentum matters. Right now, Notre Dame is still searching for the right blend of all three. Martin acknowledged as much on signing day, pointing out how certain positions have become premium commodities and how NIL realities complicate even the best-laid plans. Development along the offensive and defensive lines remains a priority, but the margin for error has narrowed. There is no panic yet, but there is pressure. The fan base can feel the hesitation, the near misses, the sense that others are striking first. Freeman has built trust through results, and that buys patience, but patience in the portal era is a fragile currency. The next 2 weeks will reveal whether Notre Dame can recalibrate on the fly, reclaim some first-mover energy, and remind the rest of the sport that it still knows how to operate with precision when the stakes are highest. If not, these early days of January will linger as a lesson, a reminder that in modern college football, being ready is no longer enough. You have to be early, decisive, and relentless from the opening whistle.